Hi guys, how's it going? In today's video, I thought we could reflect a little bit on the madness that has befallen our nation following Brexit. Okay, I think this week has just been a nightmare. And I think what categorizes this moronic behavior of denial is the recent announcement by Marks and Sparks that they'll be closing 11 of their franchise stores in France. Before we get to it, guys, may I ask that you ring the bell, do the subscribe thing. I respond almost to as many comments as I possibly can. I do now, because of time restraints, have to say, if you're not a subscriber and you comment, thank you, but I won't be responding. Meanwhile, let's go. As you are no doubt aware, you'll have heard the news that Marks and Sparks have decided to close half of the franchise stores in France, with the remaining stores staying open for the moment. Of course, the stores that are remaining open are in transport hubs like airports, railway stations, which are, captive audience. But of course, what Archie Norman, CEO of Marks and Sparks, is trying to do is simply drive up his own business by aligning himself to some sort of quasi mumbo jumbo patriotic call to support his own firm and serve his own company's interests. And I can say this without even the slightest fear of contradiction, and here's why. You see, he predicted exactly what was going to happen himself, okay? You see, just before the referendum in 2016, he, along with another 1,000 of Britain's primary industrial leaders, including like the Virgin CEO, said this in an open letter. Britain leaving the EU would mean uncertainty for our firms, less trade with Europe, fewer jobs, and Britain remaining in the EU would mean the exact opposite. More certainty, more trade, more jobs. EU membership is good for business and good for British jobs. That's why on June 23rd, we back Britain remaining in the EU. And guess what? He's proven to be correct. And to paraphrase Irving Kristol, Brexit was inspired, in my view, by people who had their own specific agenda, okay? But Archie tried to spin Brexit in the complete opposite direction. And rather than say what he knows to be the truth, he complained in his own article, remember, he's a columnist, about Brexit trading arrangements, and sharply criticised them again in a scathing article in the Mail on Sunday, castigating as the EU is a fandango of bureaucracy and all that sort of stuff. He cited onerous border checks and paperwork demands for entry into the EU, especially for products with animal ingredients, okay? And said that on average, Marks and Sparks wagons travelled to ports with 700 pages of documentation. Now, what exactly has happened that he himself didn't predict? Zero. You see, this is typical of the crap we have to listen to now. He knew that this was going to happen. He wrote about it, for God's sake. He spoke about it. But instead of standing up this week and telling the truth that Brexit is a complete fiasco and we need to do a U-turn on it as quickly as possible and let's face reality here, no. He decides to say it's the EU's fault. Instead, we should be begging for forgiveness for our own stupidity and get our backside back into the single market and the custom union before it gets even worse. And for those of you who think it's not going to get worse, let me play you a clip from the Institute for Government, aired just a few days ago. Now, I had to edit this clip because the sound was all over the place and it was quite long. But it's just a 1 minute, 17-second clip that you're going to learn a lot from, okay? And these are the experts. They're the experts. They represent the industry. They know what they're talking about. Let's take a listen.
And I know that just last week, I think the Food and Drink Federation put out a paper saying that exports to the EU of food and drink had fallen by something like 27% in the first 6 months of this year compared to the first 6 months of 2019.
Yes, it's going to get worse, and it's not going to get better after getting worse anytime soon, which, although we as a sector in manufacturing employ around 500,000 people, the farm to fork food chain is about 4 million people. And it's our view that we're short of about 500,000 workers. So 1 in 8 of our desired staff is simply not. There is a bit of a lack of real understanding of exactly what is driving the numbers here. And that's because the data we have isn't complete. So we think that about 1.4 million people went home at the start of the COVID crisis as a consequence of COVID, EU nationals going home. At least that's the ONS figure. But if you ask the ONS to tell you how many people who went home who weren't registered for settled status or leave to remain, then they don't know that number. And it would appear that that might mean that as many as 2 or 2.5 million people went home, and only a small number.
There you have it. Now, he did mention in that video other things, but it all comes back to the fact that foreign workers were doing what locals did not want to do, what locals do not want to do, and what locals will not want to do unless and until the conditions improve and the salaries double at the very least, which, by the way, transfers into cost of goods, then profit margins, and in the supermarkets, we pay for it. End of story. I don't want any of mine or anybody I know working at £8 an hour in a field picking bloody strawberries when they could be working in an office at £11 an hour in heat during the winter and cool during the summer. You know, why would you want to do that job? Nobody with a right mind would want to do that job. Okay? Brexit brought along with it just a wave of euphoria that when it washed up upon the shores of Great Britain became mugged by reality. That no matter what we now do, just like the water is absorbed into the sand, so also will the hopes and dreams of many. In fact, the hopes and dreams of most of just the ordinary Joes on the street in every UK village, in every UK town, and in every UK city until that tide rolls back. What the UK is doing, however, is creating a wall to prevent that water returning to basically nourish the infrastructure and economic growth that the UK now has a vital dependence upon. Now, some of you out there, particularly Brexiteers, will say that I'm wrong. So here's a challenge for you guys. If I cannot name 5 businessmen or 5 businesswomen for every 1 businessman or woman that you say that says Brexit has benefited their business, I will retract my view publicly. And now, before you jump all over your keyboards, remember this. It's got to be factual, because I will reply. Brexit means out. That was the story. No more single market, no more customs union, and definitely no more immigration and freedom of movement. Okay? So no half in, half out. Out means out. That was the message that went out. Okay? That was it. Now, I'd like to address one particular numpty. His name is John King, regular commentator. Okay? And who claims, by the way, that I delete his comments or do not address them. To say to you, John, if you disagree, then say it. Give your facts to back it up. But attaching links that have no relevance to the point being made simply demonstrates that you think people like those watching this video today and other commentators such as Daily Blase, such as Max, such as Phil, such as Michael or Big Maj, Mark, live in the same bubble of ignorance as you do, is quite frankly a huge mistake to make. Okay? If I give an opinion, I can back it up. Before I give an opinion, I look at it from every angle and research as much as possible, given the time restraints we operate under. So if you're rude or make disparaging remarks or false accusations, I will encourage everybody to treat you with a lot more respect than you show them. Okay? Right? There are Brexiteers that watch this channel. There's one by the name of Graham. By the way, if you're watching, Graham, I always enjoy the banter. You give your opinions and you give them fairly and you know, without any rudeness. You leave the national rhetoric at the door. That's the type of discussion is welcome, but not your garbage, Mr. King. You can keep that crap to impress your pals down on the pub on a Friday night, okay? Now, let's get back to the Archie from Marks and Sparks and what this means for UK shoppers. Unfortunately, as we've discussed in an earlier video, the link to such you should be seeing above my head somewhere around about now, confirms in many ways what we already feared. Okay, this isn't a surprise to us. Because of the supply chain crisis, shoppers are not going to have that same choice. But it's how this lack of choice will impact, not may impact, will impact that may come as a surprise to many. Though you may still be able to get your jar of mayo or tomato sauce, what you'll find is you'll be limited to choice, particularly when it comes to size. And that size will inevitably be smaller than what you need. And you'll be forced to buy 2 jars, proving to be more expensive. Example, if you paid $1 for a 100-gram jar, you'll end up buying 2 50-gram jars for $1.30 or £1.30 rather. Okay, that's the way it's going to happen. So you're going to see a pretty substantial increase. Vegetables won't come, pick as you need. They'll come pre-packed. You'll no longer be able to buy just what you need. In summary, what this scenario presents to consumers will be they'll be forced to buy what they want to buy, not what they need to buy. Once consumers take that course of action, the weekly shopping bill would escalate hugely. It's kind of manna for heaven for the supermarkets, because they don't make money, a lot of money, from people who buy what they need. They make a lot of money from people who buy what they want. And that's going to hit the middle classes as well, quite hard. This will happen because of a lack of warehousing staff and drivers. So a picking note, take for instance, says 10 cartons of 50-gram jars, rather than what it used to do was 5 cartons of 50-gram jars and 5 cartons of 100-gram jars, thereby cutting the loading, the picking, and the delivery time per consignment in half, okay, including the packing. So there's a kind of a little insight into what it is going to happen. Unfortunately, that's the way it is. I want to thank you all for watching. Thanks for the subscriptions, guys, and the support. See you on the flip side. You take care.